Time once again to overanalyze some Longsword. Today we're going to go over the last exchange of the gold finals from Turnhow 2024, and this is between Mikołaj Kowadzia and Bohdan Danchenko, both of Akademia Żmierzyce in Poland. After the conclusion of this tournament, Mikołaj is rated 1846 and Bohdan is rated 1854. So both of them are very highly rated. So that's around between 20 and 30 if you care about rankings. Um, in addition to being from the same club where they're coached by the world number one Antonio Britsky. So both of them stand with their dominant foot forward and point forward, but you'll notice that Mikołaj is right-handed and Bohdan is left-handed. So it's always awesome when the final exchange in a tournament is a decisive hit like this. And this example, I definitely feel is the product of the context of the rest of this bout. So we'll go through it and overanalyze like we always do. So the first thing you'll notice in the slow-mo is the little prep that Bohdan does. So you see it there, he flicks his point down immediately before he thrusts in. So flick down, tip up, thrust in. So I think there was a setup earlier that's obvious and one that's maybe a little bit less obvious. So first, the first two scoring exchanges in this bout were scored by Bohdan using these highly committed underhues to the hand. And after that, even though they worked both times, he switched his game and kind of looked for other opportunities for a while. So on one hand, if something's working, sometimes it's good to keep doing it until it doesn't work. But on the other hand, it's also good to move on to the next tactic to keep your opponent guessing about what you're about to do next. And that's what he decides to do next. He kind of shifts through his game. Because he was so successful early on, Mikołaj is now aware of the hand hits. So when Bohdan does this little, dip down to the point, it draws Mikołaj's sword down to follow. So we can see as he flicks it down, the next movement of Mikołaj's sword is down, even though Bohdan's sword is all the way on, already on the way to doing the thrust. The sword, Mikołaj's sword moves down a little bit to try to address the lower hand hit. So it just gives him a little bit extra time to get his point in there before the sword's able to come up and block. So the second thing we can examine that may have contributed to this is earlier thrusts that Bohdan does. So he's scored with two thrusts earlier in this match, and both were straight in. And in the first one, there's a lot going on that might be worthy of its own overanalysis at some point. And the second one landed, but it was very close to being parried. So that indicates that a third straight thrust might be risky because Mikołaj is obviously ready for it. So the combination of those two things, thinking that his opponent's ready for a straight thrust and knowing that they're worried about the undercue to the hands is kind of a recipe for what we see in this exchange, which is the low fake and then in. So there's a lot going on here, but there are two other things that I would like to talk about. First is the clock. So if you'll notice, the exchange starts with 5 seconds left on the clock, and the thrust begins when the clock is at 1 second. So it's possible that Mikołaj was slightly caught off guard because he expected time to be called. And if time was called, then they would have just taken a break and then fenced a second 3-minute round. So there was no time pressure for Mikołaj to end the match or anything before time's up. So the second thing is a little mechanical quirk here, and we can see. So notice what Bohdan's foot does as as he attacks. So just go back here. His front foot does a little drop step, and he steps back with his front foot. And what that does, it allows him to get his center of gravity over his feet quickly in order to start moving forward explosively. So this is a type of action that I've thought about before in the past, and I've heard of people doing it, but it's just cool to have such a cool example of it happening in the wild and in such like a an intense situation like the final exchange. So it all comes together to give us this beautiful uh, you know ending to this match. Very satisfying. So that's all for now. Thank you and have a good one.